the dynamic has not changed dramatically over the course of the weekend with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They offered, I think it was essentially over the past 24 hours, a safe passage corridor to Belarus or Russia for civilians, as opposed to, say, out the west. And the Ukrainians more or less rejected it.
Understandably.
Well, the other dynamic is that the Russians have claimed to offer at least one or two other civilian sort of passageways that they then proceeded to bomb. And it is becoming clear that phase two, if phase one doesn't work for the Russians, is to punish the civilian population as much as they can. And with that said, there is still a growing choir of people in this country, perhaps in Europe, although I would imagine less so, who are determined to get the United States and Europe into the game more. And here is Joe Scarborough, former Republican congressman, came in during the Newt Gingrich revolution, pushing that very same thing.
Spoke yesterday to several senior administration officials in previous administrations, and I was struck by how many of them understood that the United States should not introduce troops to NATO, should not have a no-fly zone because of what that would provoke. But I did hear quiet criticism, something that they said they would not say publicly, but quiet criticism that the United States should not recoil every time Vladimir Putin or his foreign minister wave the bloody flag of basically nuclear brinkmanship. When we are silent, when we back down, when we capitulate to that, they suggest that we actually make it more likely that Putin sees us as weak and that he's more likely to use nuclear weapons. And their suggestion is to call his bluff and speak about the consequences of nuclear weapons and the consequences for the Russian people, and to not just, again, be seen to be capitulating.
What does that even mean, though? What is it that how are you capitulating? If you're not going to, and he said that, and I would imagine he's talking about the George Bush administration, right? I don't know how many Donald Trump administration folks would be talking to him, although I'm sure the same ones who were there during the Bush administration, of which there certainly were some. There were Republicans, after all. If they're saying at that point, well, yeah, you don't want to do the no-fly zone, and you don't want to do, you don't want to have military personnel there. What is the capitulation that is going on here?
It's just we look weak. We look weak.
But how do you go, well, if you bomb us, we'll bomb you? I mean, is that not really firmly, does Putin really think, or is in any danger of thinking, maybe if I bomb them, they won't bomb me?
No, I mean, it's just, I mean, this has been relentless. I mentioned this before the show. CNN was on in like the laundry when I was doing my laundry in the room there. And it's just, what are we going to do next? How are we going to act next? How are we going to respond? How is the United States going to show its strength in this area? And like, you have people like Marco Rubio, Boris Johnson saying, no, we don't want a no-fly zone, because there's an understanding of what that means. After the show ended, a poll came out, which was like poorly worded, but it still, I think, is instructive because these things are not explained to the American public, definitely not on Fox News. I mean, on cable news. A no-fly zone is not a force field. 74% of Americans, according to this poll, said that they would support a no-fly zone. No. A no-fly zone would mean shooting down Russian planes. That would mean war. And that's not something that anybody should seriously engage in. And conservatives in this country are also reticent about that for the most part. But when you turn on cable news, it's like should we or should we not? Let's have a reasonable debate about an active war against a nuclear power.
What's also missing from this conversation is the extraordinary measures that we are prepared to take as a country to help with Ukrainian refugees. I know that we're doing temporary protected status in this country, but we should be talking about airlifts and funding. And this is what we should be. I mean, I think you can listen for hours upon hours and hear no one even hint at something like that. It's pretty stunning in that regard. But war is much more entertaining. Yes. I mean, this is, I don't know if I could say something less profound than if it bleeds, it leads. And this has been something since, back when we would read the newspaper and get ink on our hands. And even when we would get it from the Pony Express. Maybe, I don't know about that.
Right. Well, when you would.
But yeah, exactly. But that's the situation that we're facing. And of course, there is, they're so desperate to look at a way to pressure the Biden administration, I think in this instance, who I think have been doing a fairly good job, frankly, of avoiding that type of pressure. But they're so desperate. Now it's that Putin, when he says he's going to, if we engage in a no-fly zone, he is going to, put his nuclear weapons on high alert. That we didn't come back and go, well, if you bomb us, we'll bomb you. Seems honestly like they need some time to fill.
And last thing too, I saw that Jon Stewart said something like, this is what cable news is made to do. And when they really step up when there's a wartime effort.
I'll bet.
Yeah. What are they stepping up to do, honestly? I mean, it was a really, I think, stupid statement by him. They are stepping up because they want more action for their coverage. And when foreign correspondents are in these things, there is always a push for action for the sake of action. And being reactive in a situation like this could not be, it's the worst tendency of all. It's a very deadly tendency. And cable news and media like this, they're invested in the perception of American might above all, and power and hegemony. And they're completely, I think, oblivious to or don't care about the consequences of it. And the consequence would be more death. So that's what we cannot engage in. Fascinating
notion to think about. 1/4 of this type of coverage, just a quarter of it, for what's going on in Afghanistan as people are starving, or in Yemen, where we're bombing. Just as like a low-hanging fruit thought experiment. What would happen if we had 1/4 of the reporting that's going on in Yemen or in Afghanistan? But that's all it is. Thought experiment. Won't happen. And we're just left to sort of, hopefully, I don't know, maybe the Saudis get tired, and maybe somehow in Afghanistan food starts to grow.